Mangione pleaded guilty, so why is there still a murder trial? It sounds impossible. If a man has admitted the killing, what could possibly be left to try? On Friday, August 14th, 2026, Luigi Mangione walked into federal court in Manhattan and admitted what prosecutors had spent nearly 2 years preparing to prove. He said he built a gun with a 3D printer. He said he traveled to New York. He said he posed as an investor to learn where UnitedHealthcare Chief Executive Brian Thompson would be. And then, in open court, he admitted that he shot Thompson on the morning of December 4th, 2024, and that Thompson died. The answer is that Mangione did not plead guilty in the same court that charged him with murder. He pleaded guilty in federal court to 2 stalking offenses that resulted in death. The murder charge, still waiting for trial, belongs to New York State. 1 death, 1 defendant, 2 governments, and now, 1 unusually complicated legal fight over whether the second case can continue at all. To understand it, go back to the morning of December 4th, 2024. Thompson was walking toward an investor conference at a Midtown Manhattan hotel when a masked gunman approached from behind and shot him. The killing was captured by surveillance cameras. Thompson was 50 years old, a husband, a father of 2, and the chief executive of one of the country's largest health insurers. The images spread across the world. Then came the search. Police circulated photographs of a suspect from streets, transit areas, and a Manhattan hostel. 5 days later, employees at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania, recognized a customer and called police. Officers arrested Mangione. Investigators said they recovered a 3D printed pistol, a silencer, identification documents, and a notebook from his backpack. What followed was not one prosecution, but several. Pennsylvania filed charges connected to the arrest. New York charged Mangione over the killing itself, and the federal government brought a separate case based on interstate stalking and the use of interstate facilities. That distinction is the key to everything that followed. Federal prosecutors originally brought 4 counts, including a federal murder count that could have exposed Mangione to the death penalty. But in January 2026, Judge Margaret Garnett dismissed the federal murder and firearms counts. She ruled that the remaining stalking charges could not legally support those offenses under controlling precedent. Federal prosecutors later chose not to appeal. The death penalty was gone. But 2 federal counts remained: interstate stalking resulting in death, and stalking through the use of interstate facilities resulting in death. Each still carried the possibility of life in prison. At the same time, New York's case continued. A state judge had already dismissed terrorism-related murder counts, but the ordinary second-degree murder charge remained, along with weapons charges and a forged identification charge. Mangione had pleaded not guilty in that case. Jury selection was scheduled to begin on September 8th. His federal trial was scheduled for January. He appeared to be heading toward 2 major trials in 2 court systems over the same killing. Then, just weeks before the state trial, everything changed. On August 14th, Mangione returned to federal court and entered a guilty plea to both stalking counts. There was no plea agreement. Federal prosecutors said they gave him no promise, concession, or sentencing guarantee. They remained free to seek the maximum punishment. Judge Garnett warned Mangione that he could spend the rest of his life in prison. He said he understood. His sentencing was set for December 18th. That matters because this was not a guilty plea to New York's murder charge. A federal stalking offense asks whether the defendant engaged in stalking with an interstate connection and whether death resulted. New York's second-degree murder asks whether the defendant intentionally caused another person's death. The same conduct can satisfy both laws, but the charges come from different sovereigns and contain different legal elements. Under the United States Constitution, that normally means both cases can exist. The federal government and a state government are treated as separate sovereigns. Each can enforce its own criminal law, even when the prosecutions arise from the same act. This is called the dual sovereignty doctrine. It is why a federal guilty plea does not automatically erase a state indictment. But New York gives defendants broader protection than the federal Constitution alone. Article 40 of New York's criminal procedure law generally bars a second prosecution not only for the same offense, but also for the same act or criminal transaction, subject to specific exceptions. A guilty plea can qualify as a previous prosecution, and that is exactly why the timing of Mangione's plea may be so important. Within minutes of the federal plea, his lawyers filed a motion asking the state judge, Gregory Carro, to dismiss the remaining murder and weapons counts. Their argument is direct. The federal plea already prosecuted Mangione for intentionally causing Thompson's death through stalking, so New York should not be allowed to prosecute him again for murder and weapons possession arising from the same killing. The defense also raises a separate due process claim, accusing state and federal authorities of coordinating parallel cases in a way that unfairly forced Mangione to defend himself twice. Those are defense arguments. The judge has not accepted them. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office says it will fight the motion. Prosecutors argue that the state charges address different legal elements and different criminal conduct from the federal stalking crimes, including the murder itself and the possession of weapons in New York. They also point out that Mangione has not yet been sentenced in federal court. So the state trial still exists because an indictment does not disappear the moment a related guilty plea is entered somewhere else. It remains active until the state judge dismisses it, a plea resolves it, or a jury returns a verdict. Right now, none of those things has happened. Mangione has admitted the killing in federal court, but he has not pleaded guilty to the New York indictment. In the state case, his not guilty plea remains in place. That creates a strange but legally possible picture: an admitted killing in one courtroom and a pending murder charge in another. Could the federal admission be used at the state trial? Potentially, yes, if the judge allows the case to proceed and rules the statement admissible. Mangione's own words may become some of the most powerful evidence against him. Prosecutors have also described surveillance video, witness testimony, DNA and fingerprint evidence, the pistol recovered in Pennsylvania, and the notebook found in his backpack. The defense previously tried to suppress important evidence from the backpack. Courts in both cases allowed key items to be used, although the state court did suppress some statements and some evidence from the initial McDonald's search before finding that later inventory procedures supported admission of other major items. The legal details are complicated, but the strategic pressure is simple. Taking two cases to trial would create two chances for conviction and the possibility of separate sentences. By pleading guilty federally and immediately invoking New York's broader double jeopardy law, Mangione's team may be trying to reduce two prosecutions to one. If the state murder and weapons counts are dismissed, one state count involving an allegedly fraudulent identification card would remain because the defense says it arose from a different transaction. Then the central battle would move to federal sentencing. But that is a gamble, not a deal. The federal government says it will seek life imprisonment. The judge said the government's initial sentencing guideline calculation appeared to be roughly 24 to 30 years, but guidelines are advisory. The defense can argue for less. Prosecutors can argue for more. Judge Garnett will decide, and she gave Mangione no assurance about the result. The guilty plea may help the defense argue that he accepted responsibility. It may also lock in admissions that make any surviving state case much harder to contest. There is another human reality behind all of this legal strategy. Thompson's family called the plea an important step toward justice and said they remain focused on the other proceedings. Mangione told the federal court that years of severe back pain and his experiences with the health insurance system influenced what he did. His lawyer said he believed the system had failed him. Those statements may help explain the defense narrative. They do not excuse the killing. Thompson was a person, not a symbol, a husband, a father, and a man whose life ended on a Manhattan sidewalk. So what happens now? First, the Manhattan District Attorney can answer the defense motion. Then, Judge Carro must decide whether New York's statutory double jeopardy protection blocks the murder and weapons counts, whether an exception permits them to continue, and whether the defense's due process argument has merit. Whatever he decides may be appealed. That could delay the September trial or change it completely. Meanwhile, the federal case moves toward sentencing on December 18th. The headline says guilty. But guilty is not the end of a case when several courts are exercising different powers under different laws. Mangione pleaded guilty to federal stalking offenses resulting in death. New York still accuses him of second-degree murder and related crimes. The federal plea created a conviction. It also created the defense's strongest argument for stopping the state trial. That is the paradox at the center of this story. The guilty plea did not automatically end the murder case. It triggered the fight that could end it. Until a judge rules, the state indictment remains alive, the trial remains scheduled, and the most important question is no longer whether Mangione admitted the killing. He did. The question is whether New York gets to prosecute it too. If you want the real story behind the headlines, not just the version everyone repeats, subscribe now.